Yeah. What if every painting by Bob Ross and those landscapes were not really landscapes? What if these were like the places where Bob buried a body?
Well, wasn't Bob in the Air Force too? So
I mean,
he's trying.
I don't know. Was he?
I don't
I
know.
thought he was.
I don't,
That hair?
Yeah.
Well, before the fro.
Yeah. This is a happy tree where I buried Susan.
Wow.
There's a happy cloud where Susan's looking down at us right now.
That one guy, Tyler's here. Anyways, welcome to the NerdBrand Podcast. Robert, you should have plenty of stuff now for the cold open.
Ice cold open.
Yeah, very cold, like dark. Yeah, so on this NerdBrand Podcast, we're talking about murders that didn't get solved by Bob Ross. Anyhow, logo adaptability. So I'm here with Jonathan.
No, you're not.
No, I am not. I am not here with Jonathan. I am here with Michaela and with Mitch. They switched seats because it's throwing me off.
Let's keep him guessing.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can be John today. I am dressed like him.
Yeah, you kind of, you have to go, every now and then you're going to need to go,
I'll start practicing.
Yeah. John would be a terrible poker player because he'd look at his hands and he'd just look up and go, Oh. Old. We're talking about logo adaptability and brands that we probably will see go away, and some have gone away recently. So this is another thinking episode for the two of you to kind of contribute. Like, what brands can you recall, and not to answer now, but what have you seen just expire, either immediately or Mitch is laughing because he's like, dude. But yes, and some of them pretty recent. So we mentioned on the last episode that we just did. A recent one. So, but anyways, let's get into logo adaptability because it's not a new term. A lot of these terms actually aren't new that we share. They just kind of, I think, are becoming more, I guess, talked about amongst networking circles and stuff like that, perhaps. But I have a Coke can here on the table, and I always use Coke as a reference for logo adaptability because if you look up even online on their brand standards, there are so many versions of the logo, but it's not different types of versions. It's just tweaks and changes to adapt to the medium that it is printed on or displayed on. And that's what logo adaptability is. You're not going to get the full Coca-Cola company logo with the slogan onto the top of a bottle cap, which, by the way, I checked the other day. They don't put them on top. I don't think they don't put them on top of the plastic bottle caps. They put it on top of the glass. They still sell the glass Coke bottles. Mm-hmm. It's on that. So, but anyways, it's one of the most valuable brands in the world, valued at $80 billion in 2018. Now, I don't know how, in comparison to the last list that we looked at of valuable brands, actually how authentic that is, but that's what it said from the place that I pulled from. That I'm not going to name the source because I'm like, that's not what I want to get into. But logo adaptability and marks, what is recognizable that it's Coke and it's not always the logo? What's the first thing that grabs your attention about a brand like that, or any brand that comes to mind that isn't where it just says the name? You just see imagery of it and you go, that's that. Mm-hmm. Does any come to mind?
I would say like different uses of shapes and colors and how like the uniqueness of that color, and it ties in with the actual frame of that logo, like the outline of it.
Yeah.
There's games like on your phone, like guess this brand, and just by looking at it, you can muscle memory. Like, oh, I've used this brand, I've seen it everywhere, and you can just apply that and identify it.
Yeah, there's a game. Hold on, there's a game.
Oh yeah. When I would get bored, I would always play it on my phone.
Huh. There's a bunch of them that basically what they'll show you is they'll show you like a logo that has an icon attached to their name. Mm-hmm. They'll just show you either a piece of the icon, a part of it, or the icon itself, and you have to guess what the name of that brand is based solely on that. It's actually I've done it occasionally just as an exercise because I feel like I need to know these things.
Yeah,
but it's amazing how many there are, especially because they go global.
Yeah,
and most of the global brands are brands you've at least seen them somewhere. They're not that obscure.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's a great exercise, and I think it'd be for anybody out there that's into graphic design or it's into brand, studying branding in college, or you're just starting your career. it's a great tool to learn why that's important. It's an exercise in why that has so much value and why it's important to come up with brand iconography that is readily recognizable and that has visual power, because it makes it stick in the brain longer.
Yeah, I remember watching years ago, Chris Do, he was doing a workshop, and he's a famous brand designer in the sense of logos and things like that. I mean, he's an excellent designer. And he's even done shows on YouTube where doing it live, people who are designers would send in a logo they're working on, and then he would take it, and he uses Illustrator, I guess, for everything. And so he would actually rework it.
When you're designing logos, Illustrators.
Yeah. So
platform you want to use.
Yeah. And so he would be there, but not a mouse. He would have a pen, whatever that.
A pad.
Yeah. And so he would use that to kind of rework the logo that came in, and he would do 2 or 3 iterations of it and just send it to them, and then that became the episode.
Huh.
And I thought that was really great. But the workshop that he did, the most insightful thing that I took from that was there's this room of, I guess, business owners or whatever, and in the room, he would ask them, what is the value of a logo? How much would you pay? And you got the $50 one came up. So skipped over that one, and there was 500 and 5,000, and then he told them that one for him is 67,000. That's a project for that.
Well, it makes sense, because when you develop a logo, it should be strong enough that it lasts several years. And when you think of all the things that a brand will put their logo on over a period of 5 years, let's say, that's thousands of impressions across multiple mediums and items and platforms and surfaces. So if you price it based solely on that element, it's worth a lot of money.
Yeah. The Nike,
if you base it on impressions, that a term everybody's familiar with right now.
Mm-hmm.
The number of impressions is why that logo is so important. That's one aspect. And the other aspect is because it's one of those things you do once every 5, 10, maybe longer.
Yeah. Well, it's a season. When it's time, I think. But you make a good point. How many? It could be in the millions, actually, of impressions.
Right.
An impression is not one person seeing the thing one time. It's one person seeing a thing thousands of times over their lifespan, probably, or millions of times over their lifespan. I mean, it's not just one set of eyeballs for one time look. I think that's something that's also missed.
That's why a good logo shouldn't be cheap.
Yeah. I mean, the Nike story is famous. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but $100 or $70 logo. But how many multi-billions has it made? What it's printed on, the value. That's where the value comes in. Like you said, it's got legs. It will make money in ways that you don't really anticipate, and you didn't really spend any marketing money on it to get it there. The brand does the job of selling itself because it's recognizable and trustworthy.
It's the first identifier that anyone becomes familiar with about who you are and what you do. It's the first thing out of the box every time. Well, 99.8% of the time. It's multi-layered as to why the price should be higher rather than lower. It's, number one, how important it is for the reasons we've just outlined, the number of impressions it makes, and the fact that it is the primary identifier for who you are and what you do everywhere.
Yeah, and that's why you have to figure out, you're not buying a logo or a hard item. You're buying a thing that needs to be adapted. It needs to have adaptability across different mediums, because I've talked with people before that have pretty decent logo, but you want to put that on apparel? No.
Right.
That ain't going to happen.
It's got too many colors in it. It's got too many fine lines or something in it, so you can't make it small if it needs to be small easily, because it falls apart.
Yeah, and it has to be done in a simple way, like we talked about with just Mitch and I, a podcast episode about simplicity, a term they coined called debranding, which they took an existing brand logo and simplified it.
That's a trend that's going on right now.
Yeah, so that's another trend, yeah. But what's driving that is the mobile phone. It's mobile. It's driving that because of not the quality of pixel space, but the limitation
The number.
of it. Yeah.
The number of pixels it has to
Yeah.
exist with.
Yeah. Yeah, I always found it fascinating how people could like walk into a Walmart and go like, I want the bigger TV, but then they don't like the whole logo thing. Like, make my logo bigger. Why? Why is that still a thing?
Yeah.
Why is it not going away, Mitch?
Yeah, well, Jack Smalley, one of my professors in college, who was a president of his own agency, a guy I loved the guy. He could be very frank with clients. He felt he'd been doing the business long enough. He felt he had enough standing. He could go and be honest with his clients. And he had a conversation with a client and said, well, can we make the logo bigger? He said, well, tell you what, let's just get rid of everything else and let's just print your logo. That'll be the ad. And they said, well, no. He goes, well, why not? And he let them figure it out on their own. And he would let them answer the question. You know what I mean? He'd let them come to the conclusion. Oh, that's why that's not a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. What a messagery. It interferes with the message. I think a while back you said if you ask too much of a thing, then it won't do what you wanted it to
Exactly.
do. Yeah.
Exactly. And with logo, it's a conversation you run into with clients all the time, is because they expect their logo to do all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a Swiss Army knife. It has one real job. That is to quickly and powerfully express who you are. That's all. Anything else it does after that is secondary. But that's the most important thing it has to do. And especially now with people's attention spans, because they live in this universe.
Mm-hmm.
In this universe, scroll. You got to hit them quick. And if the more that is going on with that element, the more time it takes your brain to recognize what's happening, and you just scroll past it.
That was always the thing when doing websites with mobile first. They were talking about mobile first design. Mm-hmm. That's because you start designing for that, not the desktop. So a lot of the layouts would be obviously to size of the mobile device because people just scroll through. So you have a limitation of, pixel space. So what's important? And I must have met somebody like you, what you talked about, because they were like, if you don't know what's important, I don't care either. That was the answer, because it just cramming all kinds of things on the page.
Yeah.
Because when you get to that, it goes away. You don't have it anymore. I was always fascinated with the trend where there had to be 2 columns designed for something on a mobile device, and it's still done, where you have 2 things side by side, like products. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, but if you just want the one product, and you know that these 5 products make you the money, just put the 5 there, and then they can go through the others later. Like, what's important should be first. Right. So yeah, visuals.
What's the primary thing you want people to walk away with?
Yeah. So a brand can. There's some brands that they can burn very white hot, but they typically burn out. So there's a pace that I think when you're doing this that you want to achieve so that doesn't happen, because that's, we've seen a lot of brands that are really, really white hot, and then all of a sudden today you don't even hear from them or hear about them.
Because something comes along and replaces that thing that actually does a better job or makes it obsolete.
Yeah. Those are really good answers, because when you said that, I was like thinking of, celebrities are a brand. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of celebrities that people just get sick of seeing because there was so much promotion of them. Yeah. Megan Fox was one.
Overexposure.
Yeah. And then, she wasn't obsolete, but to mention what you were saying, yeah, it does become like the iPod kind of obsolete. It's amazing it stuck around for as long as it did. But they made their money on it, and they still continue to. So that's probably a factor, but it's gone. Diet Pepsi.
Still a thing.
Still a thing, but numbers are starting to waver that it may go away, because your demographic is becoming, you said on the last show, you're Trader Joe's fan. So, being health conscious and everything, is Diet Pepsi really
No, with the amount of aspartame in it. My mom, she's type 2 diabetic, so that was something that she would always drink, and she would drink a lot of it. And I was like, you're going to get aspartame poisoning if you keep doing this. So she kind of nixed it from her list. She started doing, like Diet 7-Up, and actually, like drinking water. It's like, Mom, you're dehydrating yourself. You need a glass of water.
Yeah, soft drink sales has been declining for a number of years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because for things like you're saying, not just the diet, because everybody did sort of, It was one of those, and I noticed it kind of in real time. People started drinking Diet Coke, not because they had to. People just started liking the taste of Diet Coke better than regular Coke. And I think part of what that sugar-free aspect justifies it in people's mind, thinking, well, I don't need sugar. I can drink as much as I want. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to get fat.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact it's still full of, like you said, artificial sweeteners and acids and things and stuff that can stain your teeth. Mm-hmm. And the fact that generally it's just better for you if you just drink good old H2O.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because we talked about Coca-Cola, and we actually, before we started recording this episode, talking about Coca-Cola launching a coffee now. Mm-hmm. So, the one thing I keep trying to reiterate is that if you have a strong brand that's trustworthy, it does more of the work. It will make the most of your revenue rather than your marketing because of that. Mm-hmm. So when you have an instance where you wouldn't think Diet Pepsi would just never become a thing anymore, but it's trending that way, then you have to go, well, what else could they do? Well, of course, Pepsi is a food company. They have Minute Maid and a bunch of other stuff. So, but product development, creating new products and offshoots like what Coca-Cola did. Coca-Cola is pretty much like Nestle's water and chocolate and Coke. So what do they need to do? Innovate, create new product. Well, how does that happen? Well, you have to have an agency that comes in and polls and does things and creates the labeling and creates the logo and adapts it to the new product that's being developed. That's kind of like the fun for us. So it's to see that happening now is really kind of exciting because you can kind of point to it and go like, when people say, what do you guys do? Mm-hmm. That just smaller scale.
So far.
Yeah. Mitch, wink, wink.
Doesn't mean we couldn't do it for bigger concerns.
Anyways, another side tangent. So if you love or like and want to subscribe to this podcast, please go do so at NerdBrand Agency everywhere on the internet, or find it on YouTube. Just search for NerdBrand Podcast. If you'd like to know more about what we do in branding and advertising, you can go to nerdbrandagency.com. You can also go to nerdbrandagency.com/podcast to see episodes of this podcast or listen to episodes that we have. And I think that's about all we got for today, unless y'all have anything else.
Yeah, just leave us some comments and questions and topics you'd like to hear us discuss that maybe you haven't heard us talk about in the realm of branding, advertising, marketing. We'd love to talk about it.
Yep. Other than that, that's going to be it for today. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week, and keep your nerd brand strong.